Hello, YouTube. Hope you watching the video right now. You're doing well. Thank you for being here. My name is Danilo, and as you can tell from the title of the video, this is going to be about my own journey of how I left the religion of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Probably by now, you might have watched or listened to other similar stories, but I do believe that each and everyone's experience is unique and different, and we can learn from that. I learned from the stories of so many others. It encouraged me. That's why I decided to put my own story out there so it can encourage someone else or you. We never know. Anyway, thank you. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so for context, I wasn't born as and raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. No, I got affiliated to the religion later on when I was 18, but we'll come to that. I was raised, my three siblings and I were raised by my mother and grandmother in still in a Christian surrounding, right? In going to the Presbyterian church. It was fun. It was wonderful, right? Growing up, they did their best to inculcate in all these moral values about life and things in general, good, bad, right, wrong, God, faith. My mother being devoted to the church, my grandmother even more devoted. She was the one, my grandmother, galvanizing all the family, to go to church every Sunday. It was kind of a routine. And yeah, it was great. Growing up, I was really privileged to have that care and love, coming from them. And I'm very grateful for that. It was it was wonderful. I can still remember when I got baptized with my two younger siblings. I was 10, they were younger. I was 10. We got baptized in the Presbyterian church. After my baptism in the faith, I took the religion more seriously. I was going to church, making sure I was going to church almost every Sunday. My grandmother was happy, yeah. But as time went on, the years went by, tween, teenage, you start doing other things, self-conscious, self-aware. You start saying, oh, church is not that, so my attendance started declining, right? And my grandmother, she called me out on that um several times. But yes, I was going, but not that, often, right? But she didn't no pressure, right? But as long as I stay a good kid for her was no problem. Yeah. But she wanted me to get more involved in the church, like to join, for example, the youth associations, and just getting more involved in the activities of the church. But anyway, but my life was normal. I had a good relationship with everyone. I had friends. Everyone in the neighborhood was great. The family was, yeah. So everything was going well until I was 18, right? When I started um getting more, getting closer to my neighbor. We'll call him Peter. And all the names that I'm going to use throughout will be pseudos, right? To protect the privacy of the individuals. Yeah, Peter, my neighbor, he lived with his parents and a Jehovah's Witness family, right? Very close to our house, the house very close to our house. Later on, there will be another witness family that will come into our neighborhood. We'll call them the William, right? And I just started. We grew up together. I and Peter and I grew up together. We didn't consider ourselves. We were in the same neighborhood. We're talking, but at that age, it became like we became close. Yeah. And just one day he told me that okay, he had difficulties with English, the English subject, English language, and he wanted to level up his grade in the subject. I I said okay, no problem. I'm gonna help you because I senior him, and in my home country, the two official languages, right? English and French, and that means two educational systems, right? I was in the English system, he was in the French, and he needed my help in English. I said, okay. no problem. And then we started these educational sessions where he will come over to our house, and then we'll have these educational session where I will lecture him, lecture English, and help him with well, pretty much where he had difficulties in the subject, and also I'll help him with assignments. Right, the session took between 30 to 1 hour, I think. Yeah, and his parents, they didn't have any problem with that. They saw it as, never helping, never each other, and we were young, right? So anyway, the sessions were going well until one day he brought the subject, he brought the Bible, and I was like, okay, this is interesting, right? We started talking about the Bible one day like that after session, and that day we had a guest in the house. It was an assistant to a pastor in a church. My elder sister started attending, right? And there was no problem. The family, when she started attending, going to the church, was fine. So Peter and I was discussing in the living room nearby, and that guest, we'll call him John. He was about to leave, and he listened to our conversation, right? And before you know it, Pete, Peter and John started talking about the Bible, and I was just mesmerized. Like, it was fascinating for me to watch. I saw Peter defending his faith. You know, with with zeal. I saw him like throwing Bible scriptures. I remember what they were talking about. They were talking about books that didn't make it into the biblical canon, right? The Bible that we don't have today. They talked about the book of Maccabees and Tobit. Yeah. So it was like mind blowing for me to watch Peter, discuss and defend his faith, with someone as knowledgeable as John in the scripture. I thought, right, and for me it was great to see, because I always had this feeling, that I want to know more about the Bible. I really want to know the Bible. Like, I was interested in, at that time, paranormal things. So I read the book of Revelation. Book of Revelation is, in the Bible, the book that I read the most. Right. I read other books as well. The Gospels and everything. But that was a book that I liked, Revelation, for some reason. But I was reluctant to read the the entire Bible. I was just reluctant for some reason, but I wanted to know, and I had a deep respect for the Bible. Yeah. So look, that day at the finish the conversation, I was done, right? I went to see him off, and it kind of created something in me. I just said, I want more of this, and then further lectures with him. We talk more about the Bible, more and more and more. And at first, I didn't quite accept what he was telling me at face value. He will share his beliefs with me. That we talked about several Bible subjects like hell, the cross, Jesus, Trinity, things like that. And he was telling me things that I like. No, he told me hell doesn't exist. Hell is not real. I'm like, no. Jesus did not die on the cross. He died on an upright stake. Like, what are you talking about? So it was a debate at first, like, who will win. Like, those beliefs, that about hell and stuff. The things that have been taught from childhood till that point, right? I wasn't going to allow Peter to beat me. you know, I wanted to prove him wrong, that he is wrong and I am right, and he wanted to prove me wrong as well. So that's how. So we will do research on our side, reconvene, talk, go back and do more research, reconvene and talk again. So it was a debate, and it was a kind of a argument fight, if I can say it. But one day, and at first, everything was okay. Both our parents didn't notice anything. So it was just two friends discussing about the Bible. Nothing special. One day, I went to his house. We were talking, and then he showed me something in the Bible. He told me that, oh, showed me something that actually was profound to me. It might not have the same effect to you, but for me it was something big. He told me that Jesus had brothers. I said, okay, what do you mean? Are you sure about that? No way. He said, okay, let me show you in the Bible. He showed me the scriptures in Matthew chapter 13, verse starting in verse 53, I think, yes, where Jesus he preached and then he went back to his home territory and he started preaching in the synagogue, and then the people they were asking him, "Oh, is this not the son of Mary? Is this not his brother?" So I I read that, and for me, wow, it was okay. This guy is right, though. This guy is right, and he showed me other things, little things in the Bible, and I started. That's why I accepted. Yes, I accepted what he told me, and I was like, "Wow, you won," you know, and that's how it started. That's how it started. And at first, I wanted to know more. I was zealous, like I wanted to know everything. I started reading the publications when they watched our Awake and books. They had this library in Peter's house. They had this like library where they had so many books, so many watchtower and past watchtower and publications. Awake, everything. I will take them, go back to our house, read them, finish, come for more. And I was so passionate in the beginning, and then I talked with Peter and his mom. His mom started taking an interest in me because I was interested in the religion, right? So it's normal. When you start getting interested, they also take an interest. And we talked. I talked with him and his mom a lot. And in the beginning, reading those publications, because I read the publication, I watched the videos, and because I had that sense already of urgency that, hey, this war is not going to last. That at first, so during those early stages, I was so zealous, right? I really wanted to do more because remember asking her mom, his mom, sorry, Peter's mom one day that, hey, I want to tell this to people. I really want to preach. I want to preach. Like that's when they told me that, oh, yes, that's great. That's a good goal, but you have to get baptized. They started bringing me these terms. You can start with auxiliary pioneering. You can be a regular pioneer. You can be a special pioneer. You can be a missionary. Travel to other countries and preach. I say, okay, no problem. I want to be that. I yeah. So again, I studied the study book back then. I studied the study book. Anyway, the book, the Bible study. What does the Bible really teach us? I finished that book and finished the God's love book in a couple of days. And I was just consuming, watchtower publications and watching the video. Like, I was very. I wanted to get baptized. As soon as possible, and I started, preaching to people informally. Like I'll just talk about it now. My way of thinking was changing. My terminologies was changing. Yeah. Before you know it, I started a Bible study with Peter. Of course, started Bible study, and it was going well. One day he invited me to the Kingdom Hall. The first time he invited me, I didn't go because I was afraid. The second time, I mustered up the courage and went. And the first meeting was, wow, was great. I say, oh, this is, I found the truth. And I was from that point where Peter showed me that scriptures, that scripture in the Bible And then with other things that he taught me thereafter and what I was reading, based on what I was reading, I was like convinced that okay, this is the truth. That first meeting I commented after the meeting, the brothers, the attention, it was crazy. So, and then I started going, almost regularly, but I was hiding because I knew that somehow my parents, my mother and grandmother, they wouldn't like it, right? But I was going. The That time the meetings are religious sessions of Jehovah's Witnesses, and Kingdom Hall is a place of worship. So the meetings that was the midweek meeting was on Wednesday in the Peter's congregation, and the Watchtower study was on Saturday. One day, as I was getting ready to go to the meeting. It's Saturday, right? The Since we have now two Jehovah's Witness neighbors, the William family, Peter and his family. When the Williams they're getting ready to go to the Kingdom Hall, they will pass in front of our house and we'll see them. That's when we know that they have their meeting today. That day, I was getting ready. I wore my casual dress. As I was about to leave, everyone was there in the house that day. My mom, my grandmother, my siblings, they were there. My sister just said, "Oh, you're not going to the Kingdom Hall, to that Kingdom Hall again." I said, "No, like, have you ever seen me there?" She said, "Yes, I saw you the other day entering inside the Kingdom Hall." Like, I wanted to deny it, but what she said was loud enough for everyone to hear, from my mom and my grandmother, and then they stopped whatever they were doing and started shouting and screaming at me. My mom went inside my room, got the publication that I had, came in the living room, smashed it in front of me, and said, "Oh, you thought you didn't we didn't know that you were kind of reading these?" Like, I was shocked. I was really shocked, and that's where my opposition started. I was opposed by my family member not wanting me to be in the religion, and I was ready for that. Like I said, I had this before that phase, right? Talking to Peter, reading the publications, and having conversation with his mother as well. They kind of all that got me ready to that phase, that persecution, right? And because they told me that they were telling me that, it's not everyone that like us, and you're coming from a family that you are the one that is going to bring light into your family, because no one in your family is a witness, right? And you w- eventually will be opposed, because back then I knew scriptures already, like Second Timothy chapter 3 verse 12, Matthew chapter 10 verse starting in verse 32, where Jesus said he didn't come to bring peace but sword. So I was ready for that, and for me that was further proof when they started, we from the opposition phase was rough. It was really, really rough, and explaining that will fall outside the scope of this story. But we can talk about that. I can talk about it in another video. But anyway, so their reaction was the proof that, I am in the right religion. I am in the right path. You know, and because I was like, okay, Satan doesn't want me to be Jehovah's friend. Satan doesn't want me to join Jehovah's organization. Okay. And yeah, that was the reason, because when you read scriptures in the in the Bible, like, and interpretation in the publication, read scriptures like in John chapter whole of John chapter 17, where Jesus said, if they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. You you tend to say, okay, yeah, I want to follow Jesus, and of course I will be persecuted. you know so for me, that was proof that, I am in the right religion. So that phase because they opposed me for like a long time. It started when I was 18, and then they started slowing down, ending 2020 to beginning 2021. Yes, so that actually caused me to change congregation several times, five of them before I immigrated. Because yes, I immigrated to Canada, but I'll come to that. Five congregation, I changed Bible conductors several times because it was tough. It was really really tough. And then at the time, I got psychologically unstable, I got depressed, and I became inactive. But I progressed to the point of unbaptized publisher, meaning I was allowed to preach. I could preach with the brothers and sisters with the congregation, but I was not yet baptized as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, right? And yeah, it it wasn't easy. So, and that caused me to become, yeah, inactive. I stopped all the activities at a point, yeah, before immigrating to Canada. I immigrated to Canada in late 2022, October 2022, right? So this is the kind of first part. I think I talked too much already, so I will continue the other part of the story in another video. So thank you. I just want to add that, okay, during this phase, Peter and his mom, of course, and other Jehovah's Witnesses that I was already friends with, because I made so many friends along the way. They were encouraging, they were supportive during that stage, right? And that actually gave me um, the courage. That actually gave me the courage again to endure all of that, because they are what my mom, mother, and grandmother wanted, and by extension, other family members. They wanted me to leave. That's why they wanted me to leave, but they are as they were adamant, right? Myself, I was also adamant. So that's why their reaction had an adverse effect, right? It wanted they wanted it to cause me to leave, but it actually strengthened my resolve to stay in the religion. But anyway, that happened. So I'm just gonna continue the other part in the next video. So thank you.